Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Summit, where you will learn to raise your frequency to connect more deeply with yourself, your soulmate, and the divine. I'm your host, Waxela Sananda, and today we will be having a lively conversation with Helena Reilly of quantumsoundtherapy.com. But first, please join me in a short alignment process so that we can all get centered and connected and open to receiving whatever information is for our highest good today. So begin by closing your eyes and deepening your breath into your belly. And as you're breathing, allow that breath to move into your heart center, getting in touch with the light that is within your heart. This is your heart light, and just feel the warmth of that glowing within you. And now connect into the central sun far above your head and the heart light within the central sun. This is the heart of the divine masculine energy. And feel that heart light of the central sun moving down into the top of your head, all the way to the base of your spine and the bottom of your feet. And then breathe that back up into your heart center, joining with the light within you. And now bring your awareness into the center of the earth. This is the heart light of the Mother Earth, the divine feminine energy. And breathe that divine feminine up through the layers of the earth into the bottoms of your feet and the base of your spine, and all the way up to the top of your head like liquid crystal plasma. And then bring that energy into your heart center, joining with the light from above and the light within you, a Trinity portal of light. And then let that Trinity portal of light spread out around your body and out to connect with every other person watching or listening, and across all time and space. And then connect in also with myself and Helena, and feel that you are completely supported and that we are all on this ascension journey together. And with that, go ahead and open your eyes. Thank you for doing that with me. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Helena Reilly. Welcome, Helena.
Thank you for having me, Waxela.
I'm so happy to have you here. Now, Helena is a really amazing person that I have done some work with before. So this is really fun to get to have this conversation. Helena is best known for her quantum scalar sound therapy and voice analysis software. And this is something that I have been using for a couple years now in my own practice. With every new client that I have come in, I do the voice analysis software, and it is this amazing technology. I'm not going to jump into it yet because I want Helena to explain it to you. But please kind of start by giving us a little bit of your background and how you got to this point, because you do have a very interesting and eclectic background.
Yes, well, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was born as a highly sensitive person, sort of an early indigo. And of course, I became a healer at an early age, and my mother would refer her friends when she didn't know how to answer, deal with their issues, which is strange. But it started happening that I was doing talk therapy on the phone from the age of around 8 or 9. And so the evolution went into, formal training, University of Chicago. And because I was highly sensitive, I could see that the talk therapy just wasn't quite cutting it. The things that I could see that needed to be dealt with were not being dealt with. So I finished Chicago and got my fancy degrees and jumped on some planes to go meet the real masters in India
Mm.
and started studying meditation, chanting, and living in ashrams. And of course, they stuck me in their clinics where I became a therapist there. And what I saw immediately, much to my dismay, was that even that immersion, so immersion into a highly sattvic, clean, pure environment, vegetarian, chanting, daily meditation, darshan with the master, including I lived with Babaji and walked with him in the Himalayas, the one written about in Autobiography of a Yogi. I had the unique privilege of walking 15 miles with him into
Wow.
his ashram. And but what I saw was the stuff I'm seeing, it's not being dealt with any of these modalities. So after my journey for many years, I've lived in India 5 times, and I actually own 2 condos there,
Wow.
strangely. I came back and they sent me back into the world, and I made a contract, an intention with the universe. And the intention was, they made it very clear my dharma was as a healer. And my intention was, I will open a private practice if you send me something efficient that I can see actually dissolves these patterns that people keep repeating. And from what I could see, they repeated them for lifetimes. And so I found out from some gifted psychic that my mission was in sound and tone. I became Don Campbell's kind of associate and right-hand girl. And he sent me to University of Honolulu to a talk by a very famous ethnomusicologist. And in walked Robert Loy's technology, not Robert, someone else was showing it. And in 15 seconds, I had just come back from 2.5 years living in an Indian ashram, Ganeshpuri. Some of you may know of Gurmai Waxela Sananda, where the entire time I saw people, and I had a young son at the time, and he was 2 to 4 years old. So I got to see many dimensions of what yoga and meditation penetrates and what it doesn't. And so in walked this technology, and in 15 seconds, I was in a deep somatic trance. And that was it. I called Rightwin Lee the next day and said, if you will bring that thing, whatever it is, to my house, I will have every alternative holistic healer in Honolulu, because that's where we lived,
Mm.
at my house. Just bring that machine. And he did. And so we started our sound laboratories on Hawaii Lower Ridge overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And it was then that I started to see the great power of sound. And it was then that I realized it might take the world some time to catch up. But the very first session we did, and we were all like doctors and, we were all practitioners. So we invited a person we didn't know the very first time. And we did her frequencies, and she called me the next day and she was very grateful. So I said, what happened? And she said she was scheduled for an operation to remove kidney stones, and she passed them in my bathroom, which was
Wow.
very scary at that moment in time. But it showed me that sound had the ability, and the research is out now, it travels so quickly on a cellular level that it can shift the deepest pattern and even some of the molecular structure in the body. And
Mm.
that's how I ended up here.
Wow. Yeah, and I know that it's so powerful, and we've probably all heard of sound therapy and, gone to gong baths and heard the beautiful
Yeah.
bowls played, and the way our whole body, reacts and just reverberates with that. But this is a whole other type of sound therapy. Can you talk a little bit about the technology and what it is and how it came to be?
Yes, absolutely. And so my next step in the journey was meeting Robert Loy, my partner, who is the scalar inventor. and the inventor of this technology. And in the form that I was exposed to it, oddly, he hadn't integrated the scalar coils. But we had some long
Can
conversations
I
and a lot
stop
of
you?
karma.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Sure.
Some people are probably not familiar with the term scalar. Could you
Okay.
give a brief explanation of what scalar means?
Yes. So scalar waves, there's a reason that you're not familiar with it because it was extracted from the Earth curriculum, because it can simply liberate you and accelerate your ascension, put it that way. So scalar is, in order to have a scale, to generate a scalar field or scalar um, energy or scalar waves, you have to have coils that are wound in a certain way. And what you're doing is you're directing the energy through coils to meet in the middle and actually develop this cancellation effect at the very middle, which many people are calling 0 point.
Mm-hmm.
But you absolutely have to have coils wound according to a specific formula to create this coherent field. And that's what we added to the sound therapy. So inside, for example, this technology here, which is actually um, one of our technologies, there are coils that are generating this field by having the sound waves run through the coils. And it's another dimension. The reason you don't know about it is what's most interesting. When Tesla, some of you might have heard of Tesla, especially Tesla cars, when Tesla was on the planet, he was sort of disavowed by Edison and considered kind of a quack back then. And he was dealing with real scalar energy, and they considered it dangerous. And they actually had the impact because he was actually inventing free energy for humanity, which is what scalar is capable of doing. So it was actually physically removed from consciousness. And we wouldn't have any of the EMFs. We wouldn't have any of this interference if we had gone down. We had this fork in the road, Tesla, Edison. Tesla was inventing scalar technology that would, in the end, be free energy, and Edison put a meter on everything. And they chose Edison because it was profitable. Right. And thus have impacted the evolution of humanity. But what they also did was remove it from the curriculum. Mm-hmm. It's not in the schools. It's the only reason you've never heard about it. And only since the advent of the internet has it become more known. And of course, Tesla cars. So the difference is, and this is where our main point and our main distinction is that unlike most therapies, because of the scalar coils and the ability to direct energy and create a quantum field, ours is able to play 24/7 and generate a coherent field of energy that so that's an immersive field that you're able to bathe in and entrain in, so that many of the things about yourself that you may find troubling, like depression or emotions that are negative, eventually are dissolved over time, living in that field. But that is the key distinction, is that you have your scalar sound therapist with you at all times. And the problem that humanity has faced is entrainment with less than coherent fields of energy. Mm-hmm. So
thank you for that explanation. That's helpful. And you know, it's a very powerful technology that I'm really happy to have in my house all the time.
I was going to say, you could actually speak very clearly about, why the field is so important, what you've seen in your family. And so you actually could share that.
Yeah, I could share about that. So what I have is called the Miracle iCube. It does have the Tesla coils in it, and also I use the voice analysis to create intentions, or you might call them affirmations, but to
Mm.
you, it's really useful for manifestation.
Yes.
Um, so just all kinds of, yeah, and be careful what you ask for. Be really careful what you
That's so
ask
true.
for, because it doesn't always show up the way you think it will. So since I got mine, my whole life has changed. And what I can speak into is I knew that I had a path and I needed to be out and more visible. And I was already doing my soul purpose work, but I was doing it quietly at home mostly, and not really being a voice for a mission that I knew I needed to be.
Mm.
Because that was scary and I wasn't sure I was ready to be that visible. And yet I knew in my heart that's where it was going for me. And so when I got the technology, part of my affirmation was to be the highest service that I possibly can on this planet. And things just started to happen. And in the beginning, there's a lot of clearing that happens. So things change, relationships change, people leave your life, people enter your life. There's this big, it's almost like kind of like a bomb drops, and it's the chaos. Like, I'm a Dr. Joe Dispenza student, and he talks about when we're about to have a massive transformation, it's the chaos. Everything falls apart, everything comes apart, and then it comes together coherently and in alignment. And this can happen through years of
Mm.
meditation, or it can happen through getting in technology and putting your intention in, and in about 3 months' time, your whole life is different. So that's kind of in a nutshell what happened to my life. But fast forward now, it's been close to 2 years, I believe, and I am in
Oh.
this place of being empowered in my path, being
Mm.
empowered in my mission. I've cleared things from my body, I've cleared things from my life. People have come, people have gone, but everything is exactly as it's meant to be, is how it feels. And I don't know, would that have happened otherwise? But what I'm pretty sure is not at the speed. So it's like it took my path and just amplified, and here you go, everything really, really fast. Are you ready? And so it's just this like
Sure.
quantum leap into what your life is designed to be. For me, that's been my
Yes.
experience.
Especially when you've created that intention and you worked
Yes.
in alignment with your highest destiny. So
Yeah.
then it's going to shake it up. And that's your higher self, really. So I think it definitely, we could say safely, it speeds things up.
Speeds things up. I can
Safely. You might feel
safely.
a little
Yes.
better going through it also. I could
Yeah.
safely say that,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
it smooths out the bumps, removes
Yeah.
some of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, yeah, and some of those decisions that people aren't ready to really make for themselves, it kind of
Mm.
feels like it makes them for you, and then it's just kind of like I will describe it sometimes as like the hand of God just kind of pushes you, like, here you go, it's time, go now. Like a cat, how they just push each other off the top of the bookshelf. See how that goes.
Yes. And
But they
and there's
land on
a
their feet, so all
yes,
good.
that's well said. Yeah, there can be a mild discomfort because you're going through
Yeah,
change,
yeah,
which I guess Joe Dispenza really articulated that very well. Like everything feels almost combustible, like
mhm,
whoa. And but that's the freedom that you receive,
yeah,
living in alignment with your true self.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it feels so much better. I mean, to be on purpose. And yeah, there's a power. There's a power, and like the way that it comes together, you don't know, is it the technology? Is it that I'm saying yes to this? Is it, some other divine orchestration? But it's all of it. So it's a tool to help accelerate that. So I know you have tons of stories
Ah,
like
that's an
this.
excellent one,
So.
though. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. So, do you want to share some stories or
Yeah,
more about the
totally.
technology?
So, in living in a quantum coherent field, I just want to play off on what you
Mhm.
just said. What really happens is that we've created this holistic modality that works on you multidimensionally. So, it's very relevant to Ascension
Mhm.
because if you can, one of the key things is for example, your deep delta sleep, where you are most receptive to change, your guides can come in and work on you, and you're very open. And so a key aspect of the technology is that we do have AM PM soundtracks, and the PM soundtrack will allow this deeper, it's delta entrainment basically. And so what Shayla is talking about is when you're surrounded by this coherent field and you're clearing the chakras continuously, the potential for you to live your life just completely changed. Because one of the things that happens, and this is also very relevant to Ascension, is that, so let's say some event occurs to me in the morning and it throws off my crown chakra. My crown chakra, and we could take a picture of that with the biowells. My crown chakra is way over here. Maybe my heart chakra is over here. I'm really out of alignment. But let's say that I go into my voice code therapist and do a voice analysis. It's going to line things up. And that's what Shayla is talking about. The more time we spend in this sense of this deep alignment with self, where your chakras are actually in alignment, you're going to actually effectively enhance all of the work that you're trying to do. So what happens is, well, Shayla might have been thinking, I'd like to go out there more. But when she actually kept on aligning herself with this energy in this coherent field, she started to believe she could do it. And it happened faster. My guess is that there were thousands of small actions and decisions along the way. You got up one morning and made this phone call, you opened your practice, maybe stopped doing this over here. And so this is the beauty of having a device that's, sometimes I say it's like having 1,000 Reiki masters or a master or a sound healer continually waving their magic wand on you
Mm.
and clearing you, so that some of the obstacles that people experience in their life are cleared more efficiently. And I'll just tell a quick story of that. One lady, she came to us, it was a couple of Christmases ago, and she got the miracle. And her husband, she didn't tell us this, but her husband had a very serious motorcycle accident and he was in a lot of pain. So after they stopped prescribing the meds, he started drinking. He was drinking 18 beers a day and he was very functional. He owned a harbor, and so he had 500 employees, but he was still coming home and drinking. And so she just simply plugged the miracle in to the house, didn't tell him anything. We encouraged her not to make a big deal out of it. And he stopped drinking. And he never knew, perhaps she then spoke to him a little bit about the technology, but he never knew really what was going on. He just was living in the field at night and there was no other intervention. And so it's the way and the reason I want to make that point is that it's what we're not seeing that's in the field that's influencing us. It's both the subconscious, whose contents we don't really see or know, but it is out there attracting certain things into our life. And it's also the things in the field like discordant emotional energy, maybe yours, maybe someone else's, EMFs, things that are impacting you that you can't see, therefore you don't know how to deal with. So when you're developing or living in this quantum coherent field or this 0 point field, that's a very trendy term,
Mhm.
it's canceling a lot of that. So Moshela started to live from her center of power. And that's why she has this, I mean, I'm pretty impressed myself. She has this amazing, set of interviews going on, this telesummit, because the technology was simply clearing her, but 24/7. Whenever she went back in, she would find that center again. Some, stuff might have been whisked off, and she's obviously a powerful being.
Mhm.
And as that was cleared and cleared and cleared, and she was brought into alignment with her higher self, that's when the magic happens. Because in a state of clarity, you can manifest like that.
Mm.
There's no time or space. It's just that we pick up the clutter and we have the past. Maybe our mother had said some things like, you shouldn't say, my mother used to say, don't contradict, which kind of meant don't speak your truth. So, that's implanted somewhere back there. And so most people also have this immense block in the throat chakra, which stops them from taking the actions they need to take. And especially if their dharma is to speak and heal and teach. And so the technology does so much of the heavy lifting by generating this massive field that you're bathing in. And the software is about efficiently clearing the depression, the anxiety, the things that are also blocking. And so that's the secret of quantum coherence. And the miracle technology is that it is doing a lot of the work with you, for you, while you align and entrain with this beautiful energy.
Yeah, I remember when I was first learning about it, and you said something to the effect of, it's like having a shaman living with you all the time. And I'm like, I've done that. I did that for 3 years. And that's
Yes, yes.
but
When
I
you're
was
gone.
ready. I was ready for that again. And I actually experienced it as a consciousness, as an awareness that in the beginning would come into my dream time quite often
I
and
remember that.
work with me. I don't know if you would say lucid dream, but like consciously in my dream time would show me things, it helped me clear things from my body. It really was akin to maybe like an ayahuasca ceremony, or where that plant medicine comes in and works with you. But this was a technology that's got a consciousness attached to it. It's very difficult to explain, and even I didn't quite understand it until I experienced it for myself. And one thing that I love about this, and the Luciolite, which I also work with and had Allison talk about,
Yeah.
is these are technologies that you don't have to ingest a plant medicine or any drug. It's completely natural and it works with you naturally. I'm not saying I don't approve of drugs. I'm not saying I do, but it's an alternative to that, which is really nice to have.
Absolutely. And it's something that, whereas, you might take a few ayahuasca journeys, the light and the sound is something you can continue to imbibe
Yeah.
throughout your lifetime without any side effects, other than you may be going through clearing, which is going to be important in the years that come. And with some people that are exposed to these advanced technologies, and I do think we're going into the period where these are recognized as the medicine of the future, but now in the present. But as we're exposed and more of us are talking about it and the impact it's had on our life, what we realize is that the real power that we have is in ourself, and we just have to clear some of the static. So you have this phenomenal consciousness. And unfortunately, most have closed or calcified the pineal, but you have this phenomenal consciousness dwelling inside the body. And it's more a matter of peeling away the layers of the onion, and sound and scalar and light do that efficiently. And with substances that we're imbibing, that the research shows, for example, that with any chemical substance, it's really only imbibed at 1%, whereas sound and light is like up there at 99%. And the key is that if you can absorb that continually, you end up elevating yourself so that you're living in a completely different vibrational frequency. And it is from there that all of us manifest entirely different realities according, of course, to our destiny, our intention, our purpose here. But as we raise our frequency and clear some of the lower frequencies that are throwing us off course, we actually can manifest at a much higher speed. And that's where the ascension comes in. You have to stay in a pretty clear state to rise into those higher frequencies and be aware of anything that's coming in, that's interfering with that. So we have many stories of people who have, made these quick shifts, and in doing that, their lives on the surface, on the outside, have changed. But on the inside, they're living from this equanimity or harmony, which they become entrained with, and that becomes their natural state of being. And that's the key. With any of these methods, the key is that you learn to live in harmony and oneness and stability, and throw the rest with yourself first, that you learn to live in a state of loving yourself, and then you can begin to grow and grasp and find purpose. But the first steps are always about self-love, and part of that is being aware of what's toxic and clearing it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so now, speaking of, what's toxic,
Yeah.
I'm hearing lately a lot of conversations about 5G and this concern about 5G. Is this an effective way to protect yourself from that?
Yes. So that's one of the reasons I started talking about the field,
Mhm.
because 5G is another field. And also because it's a microwave field and it's going to be throughout the planet, there's no place to escape from. So that's why I opened by saying that scalar is the dominant waveform. And in the dominant waveform always wins. So what happens is that scalar generates a stronger field for you to be immersed in 24/7. Because the dangerous thing about 5G is they can also project frequencies through it, but it's going to be the sense, or it already is, where people experience a little more confusion, depression, and that's because of the discordant nature of the technology. It's going to be sort of like being thrown into, at times you might feel a greater sense of confusion or emotionality because something spun out your chakras, your energy field. And I think this is when our research into the energy field becomes very important as well. When we are subjected to that field, what happens? The chakras are going to go out of alignment, the energy field might decrease. And so that the significance, there has to be an antidote to that. And that would be generating a very high vibrational, high frequency field. Now, that's always been going on in ashrams and yoga centers and all kinds of places where people meditate. But this is going to be more insidious, the way it influences us, and the fact that there's no escape from it. So there are many, actually there's some, I just found out about this one event that's occurring this Saturday. It's global and all over the planet, and it's actually like a revolt against 5G. And and we are aware that the thing is that it's very profitable, so it's a huge money center for those that are investing in it, but it's going to require more diligence in staying aligned and in staying centered. In other words, you could go out and just be, just let's say you have to do an errand somewhere and you go into a busy city street and there's a lot of energy, and you entrain with that energy, and suddenly you walk out feeling really out of sorts. So that's when it's going to take that time to either get yourself centered. It is one of the main reasons that we created the Om Pocket. We didn't even really know about 5G at the time. It was around 2013, but our own community, they were getting very high, very refined, and they'd go out into the world, it was Christmas time, and get really thrown off. And so we realized at that point we were guided by we call the management team, the non-physicals to change our manufacturing so we could create a portable scalar device. And so that people, when they go out into the discordant fields, they would have this protection. And they told us that the wireless fields would become so thick, like pea soup, that there would be some very serious consequences to it. But one of them would be this sense of being out of sorts. And so the protection of the Om pocket was designed so that you could run around with your scalar device and have this coherent bubble around you. I like to call it like a bubble, or like a very coherent energy field around you, so that it kind of bounces off you more and you're staying centered and stronger in the face of that. But it was actually created for this time. But we started it in around 2013 to change the manufacturing. Now, we had no idea what was coming down the pike. And now I see that a scalar also, when it travels, it becomes stronger, and it also influences people in a positive way. So when we're running around with our own pockets, it's going to act kind of like a deflector shield. And since it's your power source, you're entraining your brain, your left frontal lobe that Joe Dispenza talks about, activating the pineal gland, and immersing yourself in gamma frequencies. These things will act as an uplifting device. But yes, the coherent field of energy is going to be more important than ever. We're already seeing it. Yeah. People calling us now from all over the world and just finding us in strange ways, because the sensitives are feeling this already. Do not underestimate what you might be picking up on. Yeah. And you might just all of a sudden feel you're having a bad hair day, but you may not be. You just have to ask, where's this coming from? And then figure out your way to breathe and get centered and understand that this is going to require more work now to remain centered. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's going to affect the children, which of course affects the adults. The children, we will see. Some will be highly sensitive to these fields. So, there are people that have huge sensitivity. And I've had the good fortune to be speaking to them, specifically the healers. And those are the people that are really trying to slow down this movement. So yes, coherent fields of energy will cancel. That's why I said the cancellation effect. And you will actually feel your ability to maintain your centeredness, your chakras being aligned. The coherence of your energy field will be very amped up in the field of our technology. That's it. Actually, the way it was described to us by management is it will help people to adapt to this energy. And one of the key things is, though, not to go into fear about 5G, because that will only amplify it. So you want to stay, centered, and ask yourself, your guidance, what it is that you need to do to remain centered in this new environment.
Yes, absolutely. It's always important not to succumb to fear, because that only exacerbates whatever negative effect you might be experiencing. Exactly. One thing I really want to see if you are willing to get into this. You mentioned the management team, and I know this group would love to hear about who is the management team that you're speaking of, and what is your interaction with them? How do you receive from them? That's fascinating.
Well, we've all become, in this group, especially those that have been living in the field, we've all become very psychically sensitive and awake, including Waxela. You can see the wide open third eye. I didn't know her before, so she might have been that way before. So it mostly comes in through dreams and sleep, but then there's a thread. And so I've become aware. They actually told me they put a meeting room a mile above my house. And so now I've gotten into the discipline where I ask before I go to sleep. And I usually am woken up at around 3 or 4 in the morning. That's how I know I've been at a meeting. It's like you come out of the meeting and you have to go in your car. Well, for me, I come out of the meeting and I have to go in my body. And then I have to sort out what this message was.
Mm.
But usually I have some idea. And so I get up and douse. And Bob was also, he's a picture viewer. So he starts seeing it in his dreams. He goes to sleep and then it gets refined over the course of months and even years. And for example, the Tesla that has 9 coils, we had 3 coils and then he started seeing them. So we added 3 of those inventions together. And then, so it evolves and it's very minor adjustments. When you're pretty lined up with your destiny, it's not, there can be dramatic change as well, but often it's very subtle adjustments and the messages come in. But again, I'm noticing in the increasing toxicity, I'm noticing I have to really disengage from people quite frequently to get the clear answers, because what the logical, the rational, or what people are saying is often not what you need to do. So these messages come in, and that's one of the reasons. And we have identified, in many cases, you'll be assigned. I've been assigned many different guides. I probably was assigned a guide for this interview. And it's an interesting thing. You will feel a different energy. So it's all about developing your psychic awareness and then trusting your intuition, which is one of my biggest messages, I would say, is I found my own growth came from disengaging from groupthink and speak and learning to tune in and trust the intuition and then follow it, take an action step. So the way, I might ask before I go to sleep, is this a good person to work with? And I'm getting group feedback. Everyone in the group is saying, no, they're concerned. They don't want to do this or that. And then I just go, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. And I'll know. So I did that last night. I was woken at 2 in the morning and I got up and I douse actually. I've been doing that for years, and it allows that connection. And then after I douse, I went back to sleep. The answer was, yes, this is a great person to work with. So I went back to sleep and I got up again, at around 5 and asked again, but with more precision, about, potential outcomes in the future and the past and perhaps why. And so it's always a matter of taking that time in a centered, clear space to tune in, and your guides are right there. So one of the key parts of our technology is to keep people in a clear enough space that they can hear the guidance instead of the collective consciousness that is saying whatever it's saying to you. It could be a voice from your mother, and it could be a voice from someone that's thinking of you and has an opinion. But the key is the causal body. The way to connect to your guides is through the causal body. Even the pocket is so that you stay connected with your guides in the phase of 5G. Now, we didn't have the language 5G. We just knew that the wireless would become very thick. So in the phase of 5G, they said, we need people to be able to listen to their guides, and the pocket will help them to stay centered. So that's one of the keys. It's this continuous alignment. And when you feel like off center, like yesterday, because I asked for feedback, I'd gotten completely confused. And then the emotions of people started coming in and I was very confused. And then I, just did some meditation, did a walk, a little work. We went to sleep. The answer was there. So it is that detachment and awareness and freedom to make your own mistakes in a way. And
Yes, it doesn't take away your personal will or freedom.
not at all. Actually, because the freedom is usually being impacted by voices in the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Not, your guides are working you towards ascension and freedom. And they're there to help you evolve spiritually. It's the rest of the world that says, well, that's not going to make you, financially successful if you do it that way. Or you
Yeah.
should do it, like, notice the marketing advice. You should really be doing it this way. So it's your guides are trying to keep you online with your higher self. And also your guides are trying to help you to avoid some of the pitfalls.
Mm.
So if you go down that road, maybe you get sick, maybe you meet the wrong person. It takes you off on a side track. So you always have to remember that they're here to help you spiritually and practically. So it's not just, it is to make your life more joyful and blissful. And easier. I don't think people fully realize that even what I do takes actually, honestly, a lot of discipline, the following of it. Because, for example, last week we were going to do the interview and it was, no, it's not the right time. so so it takes this discipline of knowing that you can trust that voice.
Mm.
But it's not easy to always listen and apply. I have to say that there have been many instances that have been challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I would say anyone that's following their intuition and their guidance all the time, you do get confronted with those situations where you're like, well, I said that I would do this thing at this time, and now my guide's telling me not to. Even like getting on an airplane, like, well, I'm going to lose a lot of money, or I could lose, potentially a job or whatever it is. But sometimes, and sometimes you can you can do it anyway. But what I think you and I have both found is things don't always go well when you go with your own plan versus the higher plan.
I've learned the hard way many times that to listen, and sometimes to not do the thing that everybody's expecting, and to bear the consequence of that instead of not listening. So yes, so I'd say, and especially in the ascension process,
Yeah.
that I've also noticed, and you might have as well, Waxela, and this is the purpose of this technology, so it's relevant. All of it works together to keep you in this space where you can listen. So if you're drinking structured water, you're actually raising the frequency of your cells. You are drinking frequencies to help decalcify the pineal. You're drinking frequencies to open the heart. So you're living in the field. It's to keep you open to the higher truth. But I've learned that over time that if you even just show your willingness to listen, you're given more.
Yeah. Yes. Good.
And it's good stuff,
Yeah.
but it isn't always even the physical thing, like don't get on the plane, or would rather you stay here now for
Mhm.
some reason that you're not understanding. You don't seem to be picking up that. They give you more in a very different way. So
Yeah.
it is in that it's like being a disciple or just learning to listen. And an easy way to do it is to your higher self instead of, the earth plane throwing you third dimensional messages, which is, you have to do this, or if you, so but it can put people into conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back around to the structured water. Now, you
Mm.
also have a history of working with water, including you worked with Masaru Emoto at some point.
Yes.
For those who don't know, would you just briefly explain what is structured water and how does that work?
Yes. So back in the day, around the year 2000, Masaru Emoto and some of the leaders in structured water approached Bob because they were structured water is a way to reduce the molecular size of the water molecule so it penetrates the cells more easily. It's and it also, we discovered, can carry frequency. And being Venice discovered water has excellent memory. So if you imprint water. So they approached Bob Masaru Emoto. It was before What the Bleep came out. The Secret was out. To imprint water without using herbs that were getting polluted. They were polluting the water. And so we used scalar technology And we found through our research that it imprinted water, like the Lord's water, will have the impression will last about 20 minutes. But using scalar technology, the frequencies will last indefinitely. The only way to remove them is to boil the water, actually. It's sort of like raw food. If you take it above 108 temperature, you lose the structure. And we went on a very long journey with Masaru Emoto because we became his private label partner when What the Bleep Do We Know, the two movies came out. So we literally, met with the film staff and the actors and actresses and the people being interviewed. And we provided Masaru Emoto's, he had 75 clinics in Japan. So we provided the structured water, we created the indigo formula for brain balance, and we provided his beautiful clinics in Japan with water. And it was the journey went on for about 5 years. And then he developed some health issues from excessive travel. So, and then eventually took his samadhi, and has been guiding us ever since, I'm sure. So but the journey with the water informs the cells of the body. So what we're doing when we imprint the water in our tanks in hot springs, we are using scalar technology and LEDs and a number of other proprietary things we've developed to make a coherent water molecule and to reduce the molecular size so that it goes in and actually hydrates you faster. But in addition, it brings a frequency into the body that uplifts you and hydrates you. So that's the key. And it's very well understood in the Asian cultures, actually, but less understood here.
Yeah, definitely. And I have had the water.
Yeah.
Your structured water, and it's really interesting because it has these different, like you said, different frequencies. There's one called the spirit molecule. So for anyone who's familiar with spirit molecule, that's DMT. There's a whole movie about that you can look up. It's fascinating. And there is no DMT in the water, just to be clear.
Yes.
No drugs, it's only frequencies. But when you microdose the water, you're getting these frequencies. And, DMT is something that can be used for greater focus. It can turn on your intuitive abilities. It can, work with clearing you, all kinds of things. And so that's a fun one to use for microdosing, but all of the structured water that you create, it has various frequencies for various things.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And the spirit molecule also helps with the decalcification of the pineal, because it has specifically the frequencies of DMT. So we actually had a funny story about that. We were at this float event in Denver, and we were microdosing with a lot of different people that own float centers, and the rumor circulated that it was THC water, which it isn't. There's nothing physical in the water, so it's only frequency. And we became a very popular booth, actually. It was a lot of fun. It lightens the mood. And so the key is that's important. The structured water is important for your health, but also for your well-being, because it can clear the field. And one of the things with the 5G is that you want to try to keep yourself hydrated. So you're processing the energy because we're in a microwave environment, and you want to keep yourself, as healthy as possible. Speaking of that, I might take a little sip of structured water.
Absolutely. Yes. And that is one of the things we've had speakers. Well, we had a breatharian speaker on the summit, which is really interesting. But yes, what kind of things can you do just really quickly? What do you recommend for keeping your body healthy as well?
Well, I would recommend living in a coherent field and drinking structured water. Those are the two. And the other thing I would recommend is dealing with the subconscious through voice code analysis. What I've found through my many years of experience in working with people is that there's the illness, which manifests physically, and cellularly. And most illnesses have a dehydration component to them.
Mm.
Many have written about this. Dr. Batman Galige, for example. And there's a second component, which is the subconscious, which is some subconscious belief that actually did attract that certain illness instead of clearing it. And if you don't deal with this, if you deal with the subconscious issues, the reason I love the voice code analysis, which is our software, is that having been a sensitive and intuitive and being quite gifted at an early age, I could see that like into the causative pattern, but I had no way of figuring out how to deal with that. Let's say in my parents, I could see what it was.
Mhm.
My mother, for example, was raised in the Depression. She had fear, but I could never deal with it. So the voice is the bridge. That's why I have that image. The gateway, the pathway to the subconscious. It is the simplest way to get the content. And because we are analyzing over 1 billion bits of information from your voice, we are actually depicting things that you're totally unaware of from past, present, future, because you are a vibrational frequency. You're not physical matter. You're walking around as a frequency. And so the voice has recorded everything. And when with maintaining health, the subconscious is as important as any food you eat, any environment you live in. If you don't deal with those programs that are creating 95% of your reality, you're going to get a very mixed life, which is why law of attraction often doesn't work. It's why people get confused that they haven't manifested that soulmate. It's because you've got a whole other program running that you're not aware of. And the voice knows. It is, without a doubt, the psychic drill, the thing that will give us access to the contents. And the story, we don't even need to know. It could have been from 50 lifetimes ago. It could be from 3 years ago. We don't need to know the story. We don't need to analyze it. We don't need you beating on pillows. We don't need you going into analysis. The voice is the shortcut into that content, or one of the ways that's extremely efficient. So we can take a 15-second voice sample and actually deal with some of the blocks that might be causing that dysfunction in your physical structure. So even if you're doing chemo, let's say you have cancer, it's very important, or you're standing in your head or being a breatharian or going raw food to deal with the imbalance, you need to go to the causative level, the belief that created that or attracted that as well.
So I want to say thank you so much, Helena, for all of this information. I always find it so fascinating to talk and share with you, and you're such a wealth of knowledge, and you've done so much. And I know you have a heart of service, and your goal and mission is to raise the frequency of this planet for everybody. So that's really your heart-centered mission in life, and you're doing that with these technologies, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And
Yes, and feel free to visit. Also, we do a clarity consult as well. So if you visit Quantum Sound Therapy, so it's
beautiful.
been a pleasure um, to be with you today, Waxela. And I really wish you such great luck in this work. And it's a beautiful energy that you're sharing.
Thank you
So
so
thank you
much.
for having us.
And same to you. Blessings. And I'm so grateful for all of this. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I really, really, really appreciate all of your feedback.
Don't be
So
afraid
thank
to
you
raise your
so much.
frequency.
Yeah. All right. Namaste.